Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Dowd.
In a job interview, what if you were asked if you could be any type of tree in the world, what would it be and why? What about on a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you and why? What if you're in a conference call getting lost in what's going on and your boss says, Tom, what's your opinion? Huh, what? What if a political activist was knocking on the door trying to engage you and you didn't have time? What if a telemarketer called you and you didn't want to be rude, but you also didn't want to be on the line? If your jaw dropped open and nothing came out, or your mouth opened and a flood of unorganized thoughts and words came out, this session is for you. We are engaged in unprepared conversation daily. What I want you to walk away with from today is 1, the ability to refine the technique to think quickly. 2, organize and articulate innovative and unique thoughts thoroughly. 3, engage the audience in short time. In my very first job, I was 14 years old, and a peer of mine asked, "What's up?" It's the first time I ever heard the question asked so casually. I was silent. In fact, to this day, I don't think I ever answered them. My response, by the way, is not much. How many of you are familiar with cocktail party syndrome? Oh, it's a real thing. According to Wikipedia, it's also known as Williams syndrome. And it means the unusually cheerful demeanor and ease with strangers. I coined the phrase for myself as being the opposite. As leaning against the wall in social situations, doing my painfully shy and introverted best not to say anything dumb. I want us all off the wall and into action. We practice these skills as Toastmasters at club meetings doing what? Table. I want to share with you today how work, practice, and preparation, yes, I use the words practice and preparation, took me from this painfully shy and introverted individual to the 2-time reigning District 45 table topics champion. I tell you this not to say, look at me. I mention this because thinking quickly on my feet is, in the present tense, my Achilles heel. We must constantly work at it. The payoff? More promotions, more sales, deeper relationships, more impactful conversations. We can influence others by thinking quickly. To quote Forrest Gump, Mom always said life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I'm working on my southern accent. Tom Dowd always says, life is like a tabletop. The audience doesn't know what they're going to get, but the speaker does. Our minds tell us to instantly answer the question being asked. So let me ask you a question. And feel free to shout out the first one-word answer that comes to mind. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be? Waiting for someone to say Kirk's and Pecos, or whatever. 2-word hyphenated. We selfishly thought of our immediate response and then blurted it out. Why did I say selfishly? Anyway. Because it's about me. What first comes to me. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. Now that we have our one-word answer, now what? What we really need to do in that very short period of time is anticipate the follow-up questions with answers relating to who, what, where, why, when, and how. We must answer, now what? So let's stick with the travel example. And let's use Hawaii. Who might you go with? Husband? Friend?
Children.
Children? No. What might you do when you're there? Find animals? Surf. Surf, okay.
Wow.
Snorkel.
Where would you go? Not just the destination, but while you're there. The beach? Restaurants?
Diamond Head.
Why would you go? People in Atlanta don't understand. It's cold in Maine. When would you go? Anytime, the season, the day of the week, whatever it may be. And how would you get there? Fly. And you can have some fun with it. You can say, I'm going to paddle across. I'm going to walk across water. Is there any right or wrong answer to this? No. Then confidently roll it. Toastmasters also teaches the prep method. Point, reason, example, point. Point, reason, example, point. If you meld both of these techniques together, you can formulate a very strong answer. Who are some of the more famous impromptu comedians out there?
John Nichols.
John
Wayne Brady.
The one that always comes to mind for me is Robin Wood. He's known for his comedic ramblings that have a flow, a story, a message. Do you think he makes that stuff up on the spot? He's practiced and refined these skills over years of practicing this material. You can go back to some past speeches you've written, table topic responses you've given, or conversations you've had at the dinner table over the years. You can find a way to fit in the situation or message you want to share. You too have material. So I want to share a story with you. My wife and very naive 14-year-old daughter were driving down the road when my daughter asked what that abandoned building was. My very reluctant wife answered, "That's a topless bar." Now, before you think I'm about to get inappropriate, my daughter asked, "What'd they do when it rained?" What are some of the points you can take away from this story? Anyway.
Clarity.
Clarity. Innocence. Assumption. To me, I got the naivety of children, twists and turns to a story, or casual conversations going awry. You can use the same story with different points based off of the circumstances. Our conversation success comes when our responses become stories that resonate with the audience. We all have stories. In fact, our impromptu responses can really be familiar anecdotes we've told many times over. You'll never be stumped again. Even in a business situation, you can use the prep method. Recap some past work that was done. Point, reason, a current example, and a final point in a business story fashion. I want you to unlock the hesitation and practice a new way of giving an impromptu narrative that is just as powerful as any well-rehearsed speech. It's audience participation time again. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food?
Mexican.
Remember those answers. I'm looking for a volunteer. And what's your name? Sherry. Pleasure. What's your favorite color? And what's your favorite food? In 30 seconds or less, if every time you walked into a room and you had a theme song, what would it be and why?
Amazing Grace.
You have 30 seconds.
Amazing grace. What more can I say? My life is filled with grace. I'm here today because of choices that people have made. I found out at age 40 that I was adopted. My birth mother had a choice 57 years ago to abort me or to keep me. She chose to let me live. Had a family who adopted me. I'm here today. I know my Lord. He saved me. I am filled with grace.
I'm done here.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Come see me after. I'll get you water.
Okay.
So what's the point of this exercise? It's to teach us that our minds are predisposed to answer the previous question. And we're anticipating something similar. What we really need to do is break that mindset. Formulate a new response. And then confidently roll. Is there a right or a wrong answer to this question? No. Then confidently roll. In a business scenario, we need to be particularly cautious about being led down a prescribed path. That's in the box thinking. It's not about making something up, but it's about being creative enough to see the whole picture, not just the immediate response. We can share what we do know, and then engage the audience and or person with questions, even rhetorical questions. We can have a conversation. There are no rules that say that we can't. We need to stop answering the question immediately and directly and start to formulate a story. It's not slides and graphs that will grab their attention. So I was sitting with a bunch of high school students going over a job interview. And I asked the tree question. And I got the typical maple, oak, birch. And I got to the person I perceived to be the trouble. He stood up and he said, "I'd be a cactus." Is cactus a real tree? He said, "Because I'm prickly. No one knows me. But every once in a while, a little animal will burrow in and start to feed off me. And then I'll start to feed off of them. I wish more people would get to know me." He sat there. Besides making rash judgments, there are lessons in here about being there. What truly makes us human is emotion. It's not numbers and stats. We need to emotionally connect with the audience. In my very first table topics contest, I finished in 3rd place out of 3 people. At the club level. The next year, I competed in both table topics and international, and I was having some good fortune with international. With table topics, no one competed at the club level, so I moved on. 2 people at the area contest, we both moved on. So there I was, sitting at the division level, not knowing if I should be there or not. I had just given my international speech and had done fairly well, and I was last to go with table topics. When I got the question, if you were given $750,000, how would you split that 3 ways equally among charities? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my 3 daughters. And thus started the freight train that turned into a train wreck. I gave some answer about their college tuition trying to be fun. The division governor came up to me after, chuckling, saying, "It was nice of you to throw the contest, knowing you were moving on for international." I didn't think it was funny. I didn't throw the contest, but I did blow the contest. There are some lessons that are in here. First, I was trying to be funny. I'm not funny. Just ask my wife. But I wasn't being me. I wasn't myself. But that's the other lesson. It's not about me. It's about the audience. How was the audience going to relate to my answer about my daughter's college tuition? How was that going to resonate with them? It couldn't. The division governor went on to say, it was interesting how you had just given a speech about cystic fibrosis, and how I know another speech you've given on animal rescue, and how you and I had just talked about the Japan tsunami before the contest. I should have been doing what he was doing, and that's reach back to in the past to find a way to emotionally connect with the audience. I could have asked rhetorical questions to engage the audience. I could have found motivational points, such as community, care, or giving, that relate to most, if not all, audiences. In Toastmasters, I did have the perfect set. Because we are taught in a 7-minute speech to have a strong introduction. 3 points or stories to support our message. And a memorable conclusion. Using this teaching, I've had the answer in the palm of my hand. Even in a 2-minute table topic, we may not have time for 3 stories to support our message, but we do need a story to support our message. And our very first thought shouldn't be the story. It needs to be the message. What do you want your message to be? You can even use the method pros and cons, but pros and cons don't relate to the story. They relate to the message. Even the simplest questions can throw us off. In a job interview, I've seen far too many people struggle with the question, what's your greatest accomplishment? Is there a right or a wrong answer to this? No. Will anyone know what your greatest accomplishment is? So we need to formulate a strong answer and clearly articulate a message that takes one of your accomplishments and how you've overcome a business challenge or achieved a stretch goal or collaborated with some business partners to overcome a business challenge, especially with a job. This self-centered question is really a nod to the value you can add back to the organization. You must relate to the audience. What is an elevator speech, anyway? 7 seconds or less. Quick pitch. Quick pitch on what? On you. If you take nothing more out of today, I want you to write out your elevator speech. A 2-minute version, a 5-minute version, and a 10-minute version. You don't think you'll ever need it? A colleague and I were down in North Carolina for meetings, and before the meetings we were working out at the hotel gym. And there was our CEO of 300,000 people. He apparently works out longer than we do. And we were done, and we're in the elevator, and in came a hand and stopped. I didn't have 2 minutes. We had 2 floors. I've jotted down a pool of answers relating to my elevator speech. The one that I've gone to a couple times is the first time I ever heard the phrase, Tom's communication skills are his key strengths. You have to understand. I was a communication major at the University of Delaware, but for 18 years I was told in my performance appraisals that I couldn't communicate. I then talked about how I had to take action if I wanted to see any type of success or improvement. And I talked about how I joined Toastmasters, and Toastmasters changed my life and career. And I provide some examples of how that happened. We must also be confident and creative and differentiate ourselves. When I was asked about my bucket list in last year's Table Topics final, I instantly thought about the 4 competitors who were ahead of me. I knew the audience had probably heard some lists about exotic travel or death-defying moments to get over their fear. I quickly made the decision to not go down that path. Steve, let's take a look.
Contest chair, ladies, and the bucket. The thing you're going to do when you die. Is it ironic that I was just listening to the song Live Like You Were Dying? I think I'm going to run off and find a bull named Bang Soup or whatever it's called. A bucket list tells you you haven't done something that you wanted. I can tell you right now, if I die today, I've done everything that I've ever wanted. I failed miserably. I've been rejected more times than you can imagine in trying to get a book published. I was turned down 4 times for high school club. But what I will tell you is that if you have everything that you want, you don't need a bucket list. You can have other stuff you'd like to do, but I would never tell you I have a bucket list. I wouldn't want to jump out of a plane. But what I would tell you is that as much as I'm sure you want your children, I want to raise children. I live in the greatest state. Canada's beautiful too, by the way. I need to ask you a question. Do you need a New Year's resolution every single year? Because you didn't do what you wanted to the year before. Do you need a bucket list in your life because you haven't done everything in your life and you haven't done it? Don't write it down, just do it. Because today is your day. As Mark said, to live and shine. Because today is the day that you don't need to write.
I share this with you to reinforce some of the previous points. It was a chance for me, to be true to myself. But remember, it's not about me. It's about the audience. We need to reach deep down into our hearts and souls. Play to our strengths. Think about the audience. And then emotionally connect with them. And then confidently go down that path with no hesitation. Confidence takes us an awful long way. We are presented every day with the need to spontaneously and succinctly convey our thoughts, ideas, and opinions. Those who do it well consistently land the big job, grab that big promotion, but more importantly, can influence those around them. Life is one big tabletop. Imagine your own success and then confidently roll it. Thank you.
Any tips for if you just draw a blank when someone asks you a question, your mind goes blank, what do you do to get the ideas flowing?
Make it up. interesting because it depends on the situation. Is it a table topics contest? If it's a table topics contest, go down a completely different route. Go check the actual form itself and see what you're being judged on. Nowhere does it say you have to answer the question directly. That's it, based off the circumstance. But if you're in the middle of a conversation, you can ask a question. You can spend some time formulating a question. And it gets very dangerous when I say don't answer the question directly, because you don't want to avoid the question. You should answer it. But you should give yourself enough time, enough pause to answer it. If you saw up on stage, I gave myself a few seconds to answer it. And it's okay to have that pause that's there. It's okay to ask a rhetorical question and ask to repeat the question if you need to. Or you can ask a rhetorical question and say, so what were you thinking when you asked that? And you can spur the conversation back and then it can get going a little bit. Does that answer the question? You know, part of it is to, I felt in the last couple of years of table topics, and I have failed miserably at table topics up until the last couple of years, but I started to feel like I was having a conversation with people. And whether it's one-on-one or one-on-300, it should be a conversation. Everyone in the audience should feel as if there's something in it for them, because you have to ask the question, what's in it for me? As an audience member, and as a speaker, I need to ask that, what's in it for you? And so when I'm drawing a blank, I'm instantly going to think about you. What are you trying to get out of this conversation? What are you trying to ask? Is there something specific you're looking for? They may ask a broad question that's this big, and you might ask a question, oh, do you want me to just answer it this big, or is there something specific you'd like me to get to, and I can get down to this level if you need me? Great question.
One point that I'm taking away from the message you're giving us is that you learn a lot from your failures as much as you do with your successes. And outside of competing at table topics, what's been a major learning point or learning moment for you as far as this impromptu process goes?
It's really interesting that you asked that, because I've failed miserably in a lot of different things. You heard about my high school prom. You apparently know my whole life now after last night today. But when I was preparing for table topics in the past, and yes, I say prepared, my kids would have these little table topic questions, and I would ask them because I wanted to teach myself to think quickly. I took the wrong route, because I could think quickly, but I would take myself down this rabbit hole that I couldn't dig myself out. When I gave their answer about their college tuition, I heard three, and I saw my three daughters, and I said, college tuition, $250, $250, $250. And I quickly answered the question. I immediately answered the question selfishly. And the biggest learning that I had was, besides it's not about me, was take a step back. And I stopped preparing that way, and would just prepare by understanding stories about myself and about my life and about my family that I think could relate to people. And 2 years ago, the question that was asked was, what is the greatest technological advancement in your lifetime? How is that going to relate to anything that I had prepared for? Nothing. But I was prepared, because I started to have some fun with it. I gave some answers about how my children sit on the couch and text each other. And then we talked about how you can't talk. That we're losing the connection between real conversations. And that's what brought me back to the audience. And so the preparation came back to, what are you doing with the audience? Great question.
Reverse the tables a little bit. How do you, as a club, help your members come up with ideas if they are the table topics?
Oh, I can come up with it. If you go on the internet and just put table topics on, there is District 61 or something like that that had a list of 300, and that covered you for at least 7 years. But the point is get creative. One of my favorites is you find one question, and you ask the question. And then that person answers it in their 1 to 2 minutes, and then the next person has to follow up. And they can take it in any which way or form, and then you just do a follow-through from there. So there are so many different topics that are out there. And what I will tell you when you're asking the questions, the ones that always seem to, for me, are the ones that are very specific. Like I had a question that was asked, if you were on Gilligan's Island, and you were the only one there, and there was something about how you would get off, and you're not thinking, because now you're thinking Gilligan's Island, it was very specific. I've actually seen 3-part tabletop questions. What you really want to do is think about what the purpose of a tabletop is. And that's to get your creative juices going, not the right answer. And it's to get us to think of how can we clearly and concisely articulate an answer that will resonate with the audience. And so I would keep the questions as basic as you possibly can. Not try to stump somebody, but find an answer of, what's your favorite food and why? Those are the types of questions that get the juices flowing. What's your bucket list? That could be one of the easiest questions you ask, or the hardest, depending on how you make it, but it's basic enough that it relates to everyone. And that's, I think, the key point, even as the person asking the question, is be careful of what you're trying to get out of it asking the question. Go for it.
You described it. If you're only prize one, you describe it briefly.
The toughest question to an author. If you can only have one of my books, then I would bundle them into a package. You know, it's interesting what you're trying to get out of it. The speech last night was the introduction to the book, The Transformation of the Dowd Economist. And growing from a cynic to a professional in the corporate world, and I truly was absolutely the cynic of all time. And that's about my professional roller coaster ride. You heard a lot of that last night. And it gets you into a mindset. There's 3 target audiences for that. One are those that are looking for a job. Get them to differentiate themselves to find a job. There are those that are sitting at their job that are stagnant, going, I'm going to work every day, and I'm not sure what. It's going to create that spark for them. And then there's the ones that are after that are leaders of people in a company to get the group to think in terms of what they can do collectively and you can do for them, and it becomes a selfless thinking as a leader. The public speaking one is I was doing a lot of preparation for the contest, and it's not contest driven, but the premise of the book was, as I continue to do more research, the books that I was reading is what's going on in your head, what's your mind telling you, what's your body doing that's causing the sweating and shaking. And I just wanted to get down to the basics of, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I just want to know how to become a better speaker. And I found when I wrote that it's not about the microphone, the podium, or the left turn of the stage. It's not about 300 people sitting in a room, it's about